Good morning, good evening to you, and welcome to the Friday Study Circle. And let's take a few moments to just gather ourselves, to bring ourselves here. It can be very easily done with our breath, focusing on it while you breathe in all the way in, and when we breathe out all the way out. Invoking Mother's presence and grace as we read the passages of the Sunlit path. Thank you. So last week we had completed the last segment. This was the last one. We took a call for the path. And this week we had to, if I'm wrong, please do correct me. We did finish it. Yes,
You're right.
Captain?
You're right.
Okay. And so we have to now start with surrender, self-offering, and humility. So we'll begin. And yes,
I'll read.
okay.
Okay. Surrender, self-offering, humility. Two paths of yoga. There are two paths of yoga. One of tapasya, is discipline, and the other of surrender. The path of tapasya is arduous. Here you really solely upon yourself. You proceed by your own strength. You ascend and achieve according to the measure of your force. There is always the danger of falling down. And once you fall, you lie broken in the abyss, and there is hardly a remedy. The other path, the path of surrender, is safe and sure. It is here, however, that the Western people find their difficulty. They have been taught to fear and avoid all that threatens their personal independence. They have imbibed with their mother's milk the sense of individuality, and surrender means giving up all that. In other words, you may follow, as Ramakrishna says, either the path of the baby monkey or that of the baby cat. The baby monkey holds to its mother in order to be carried about, and it must hold firm. Otherwise, if it loses its grip, it falls. On the other hand, the baby cat does not hold to its mother, but is held by the mother and has no fear nor responsibility. It has nothing to do but to let the mother hold it and cry, Ma, Ma. Continue.
Yeah, so we'll just stop at this passage because I think, yeah, it's ended. So we'll just reflect on this before we go. Although it seems like this is something that we, talk about often, that we confront so often, and yet we keep forgetting, we keep becoming a monkey, while it would be so much wiser to become a cat. Mm. So here, just to go over the passage, the two parts of yoga, We're talking about the two parts, one of them being tapasya, which is the discipline, and the other being surrender. The path of tapasya, it said, is arduous. Here you rely solely upon yourself. You proceed by your own strength. You ascend and achieve according to the measure of your force. I think this I found very, kind of powerful, that there my limitation in tapasya is what I am limited by. And I am very limited. But when you talk about the other way, right, like in which you're offering, in which you're just saying ma, 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 then there is no upper limitation because it's not you then. And, when we offer, when we say that I can't do it, you can, really, that hand comes or that grace comes and we end up doing things that don't seem possible, didn't seem possible before. So the first one it said is limited. There is always the danger of falling down. And once you fall, you lie broken into abyss and there is hardly a remedy. The other path, the path of surrender, is sure, safe and sure. It is here, however, that the Western people find their difficulty. They have been taught to fear and avoid all that threatens their personal independence. They have imbibed with their mother's milk the sense of individuality, that I am, it's me, it's my decision, it's my life. Monica, I remember you've been often saying that you wonder why the current generation, the younger people, right, the youth, like say 18, 19, 20 kinds, they somehow run away from any talk of spirituality, right? Maybe this again could be the reason, that because the influence is so strong now, right, which wasn't the case before. Maybe that is one of the reasons that it feels that it's telling me what to do, and so it's taking me my independence, from me my independence, right? Could be, I
Yeah, I
think.
think a part of that could be this, but another part which I see is also, I think as parents, as adults,
Mm,
somehow most of us are in the habit of preaching,
mm, mm,
like telling, okay, this is the better way, this is the right way, and you must follow. While we are not good examples to follow, that just like good living presences to follow. And I think as for kids or anyone, we learn more by anybody's presence rather than their words. If a person is telling me, okay, this is the good thing, this is what you must do, but the person himself or herself is not really an idol or an example, then I would not be able to, there would be repulsion in me that agar ye keh raha hai fir to pakka nahi follow karna, so that kind of rebellion. And I
mm,
think most of the cases as parents, we do fail in like constantly progressing and working on ourselves. Somehow that preacher aspect comes, especially with children, and that really I feel that that causes the repulsion. In just one part of it that I see is that that also causes repulsion, that uh, yeah, I don't know, कि अगर यहाँ से कुछ आ रहा है तो वो तो मैंने पक्का नहीं सुनना. Right? While if we can be nice friends to our children and just keep progressing on the path, our own path, and not mostly getting into preaching, which some, I think some part is unavoidable as a parent, but if most of the part we can let go of and just can be gentle presence around, who is working on her own self, his own self, I think that much is
mm,
enough, because then, yeah, in silence things are said, and again there is no manipulation ki, oh, if I am working on myself, then the child will see. Not even that. That you have, like we were talking yesterday, that you have faith and certitude that the child will be uh, you know yeah, in alignment with the unfolding of his or her own life, like I have been. So there is a certitude and, yeah,
mm.
faith on the higher. Yeah, so I think, yeah, that was also the part which was coming to me, that, yeah, that's also there.
Actually, this is rightly so. That children, they observe from the birth. They keep on observing. So instead of telling them when they try to, they understand. Say after 4 years or 5 years and all, when they understand. Instead of telling them from the birth, if we follow something which they can see, observe, and they learn actually. So instead of giving them the this thing, the order or something, and probably if they observe, they learn faster, because it is seen that suppose the father or mother is smoking in front of the child, so they will be thinking that what this child will understand, there is nothing. But this child will pick up that habit very fast. Means in the earliest opportunity, the child will put something and act like as if he's smoking. It may be a chalk, it may be a small rod or something and all. So what is seen up to 7 years of age, actually their learning is over. The child can be molded. Psychologists, they say that. So that is the most crucial time, 1 to 7 years. And they see most of the things they see, and of course they can hear, and all the senses are there. But whatever they see, they observe very keenly and very concentrated way. Actually, they concentrate very fast on the things. So this is also one of the factors for the parents. It's better to do something and not preach, not preaching. Yes, I feel so. And another thing is this: the children, uh, like there is a joke that somebody rang the bell, and father is telling that open the door and tell them that father says that father is not at home. So this way actually we go wrong. This is the way we go wrong. We thought that the child is not understanding. The child is learning how to tell a lie or bluff the person and all this. So these are the things we must avoid, because we take it for granted that they are not understanding anything. Most of us we have seen, and we undermine that kuch nahi pata, kuch nahi pata, and we know everything. So that is one of the biggest problem actually, what I feel, to bringing up the children in our society. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Captain. So they had imbibed with their mother's milk the sense of individuality, and surrender means giving up all that.
Yeah,
Yes,
I think, yeah. So we got on a different tangent, but this would be nice to take up also. So I think most of us would have visited, or maybe even in India now, that Western influence is there of conditioning, childhood conditioning, and growing up, where the the focus is very child centric, like, you are the center of this world. And also because nowadays there are less children in each family. Earlier they used to be like more, 3, 4, or 8, even up to 12 in India, and maybe more. you know. So uh, I'm just sharing a perspective. There is no concrete thought here. So I was thinking that then it's not a child centric growing up, that, oh, you are the center and apple of my eye, and you are everything for me, and pampering the child excessively. And that's how, like, a individuality gets formed. And the child also begins to think, he has not been told, but he begins to think that, oh, I am the center of everything. So according to me, everything has to move. A strong sense of that kind of an individuality. While when there were more children and there were not that much many nuclear families, and I remember that it was like and I'm sure people are, welcome to share that children were just growing up. They were just growing up. They were not being pampered and grown up. They were growing up in whatever surroundings parents were engaged in. So I feel that nowadays, and again, everything has its own place. So I'm sure whatever the phase that we are going through, that also has its own place. But nowadays, I feel that we just, because of less children in each home, we also just make the child to like center of everything, and in Western world we can see that already that had been the case. So one or a couple of children and the center of everything, so you decide, and there it's well known that as soon as the child is 15, 16, I think they have, they can easily move out, have their individual houses, live in relationships, everything is, it's like common, it's like, so a very strong sense of individuality gets formed very soon. I think it's pretty soon and immature. I've reflected over this many a times, and then that's why we have too much of this indulgence in all kind of sad things, while teenagers are growing up, because a strong sense of individuality while responsibility has not yet come. So with freedom comes responsibility, so there you get freedom at 14, 15, but there is hardly any responsibility and maturity in the being. So we make all kind of licentious use of that freedom and end up, entering into addictions of all sorts. And that's why in Western world we see that, especially, many things are common which we usually don't hear in India. But now I think in India also it's kind of catching up. Too much Western influences there. Yeah, and then if we see masters and seekers and Western people asking questions, and even now Indian people who have been westernized, modernized, spent many years away, from India, so they also develop this very strong sense of I, me, I am the one, because there was hardly any family, there was hardly any collective, you were the one, now. What about surrender? So how can I give up this one, this is like my precious. Now you're asking me to, surrender. What do you mean by what is left then? So that idea doesn't resonate at all. What are you talking of? I mean, but for Indians, I believe that this, not only Indians, but of course, it's a widespread phenomenon. Most of us, because we have a sense of devotion from our childhood in India, because of our religions, Hindu deities, and everything. So, I feel that somehow it is easier for us to think about the concept of surrender because of the aspect of devotion spread all around India from north to south, which is not that common in Western world. Although having said that, we know that many Westerners feel very resonating towards the concept of surrender or devotion, and they also find solace in India. Coming back to, they feel that, oh, why am I not in India? And people who are in India, they are so lucky that they are in India. So people also feel like that. But again, that's a rarity rather than a common phenomenon. So just a few thoughts on this topic, and yeah, more reflections are welcome. So I feel lucky, actually. I feel blessed that being born in India, and like already that aspect of devotion, you don't even have to question about it. So of course, in one lifetime we may have question, but in this lifetime at least, it's like devotion, of course, why not? So it becomes a bit easier, the path of surrender, and going forward and surrendering and opening up to the mother, all that becomes a little easier, I feel. And again, there are variations, so not anything concrete.
Yeah, yes, thank you so much. And surrender means giving up all that. In other words, you may follow, as Ramakrishna says, either the path of the baby monkey or that of the baby cat. The baby monkey holds to its mother in order to be carried about, and it must hold firm. Otherwise, if it loses its grip, it falls. The sense of doership, like although it looks harder, right? That why would I want to hold on when I can just let go? And get the sense of why that I-ness that you've been talking, the individuality that I've been talking, it's very hard to let go of the I, right? Like especially when it has been developed so strongly that it feels that if I am not doing it, it will not be done. Like that faith, I guess, is not there. Again, the devotion, the faith, and this, I think, again, in here only there's a passage later on about action, right? That unless we feel something is happening, something is moving, as if there's nothing happening. Like we have this false notion, and yet, the things that happen in non-movement are the things that actually matter. I mean, it's sounding weird to hear, but I'm like, it is in one of the passages, and we'll be taking it up.
I think that's why we get so attracted to many sophisticated methods and techniques, because there I have something to do. Like really, techniques become very very popular and they have their brand mark on it. I have learned this technique and that technique, because then again it is a feeder for my ego that, oh look, so many techniques I've been doing. That too, and also there I feel that I am, as you were sharing, that I am doing something. So and of course they may have their place, that after doing many 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 techniques, one day I will say that, oh, maybe too much, drainage of energy, and then maybe opening can happen, since everything has a proper place. But that's why I feel that the easier paths, like a simple path, which is what, open to the mother, that sounds so difficult to us. But if somebody is handing over, oh, 2 times tap here and 2 times tap here, that sounds easier, because there I have to do something. Opening to the mother, I'm like, okay, how do I open? Like, do I take vapor and open up the pores? What do I do? Because again, wahan pe bhi wo doing ka, I'm looking at what to do here. It's very interesting how the mind functions. And also, I think it also shows that most of the times we are so tensed, like anxious also, to what to do next, and if you are, that's why we get so restless when we are, say, waiting in a traffic jam, or because what to do. So today actually what happened, yeah, on this I remember there was a red light, very major red light here, which got stuck at the traffic hours, like evening hours. And like there was such a horrendous jam there, like I was looking at it, मैंने कहा okay, ये यहाँ पे है, ये यहाँ पे है, there's no chance things can move, okay, relax. Let's watch the play. And it actually was very enjoyable, like because I was thankfully not in a rush. And I was just looking at people's faces also. And then of course when things like these are happening, people hit each other, and then you have clashes with one car bumping into another. But then in the middle of that chaos, if you can, I found that if I can relax, okay, not to do, if I get space I will move, if I don't get space, okay, we are fine here. So somehow I think that sounds easier, but at times for us it's very very difficult to let go of all control and domination and trying to fix things. But there I think we are the most kindest to our own self and others also, because then I'm not putting my agitation on anybody else around me, and I'm also kind towards myself. So yeah, this idea of just always wanting to do something and at it, I think that's why in meditation, Jetsunma shares at times that there has to be a balance between too tight and too loose. Because if you are too tight, then you become like too rigid. Oh, I have to do it. I have to do it. Again, that doership comes. I have to, oh, I have to, bring myself to the breath. And if you become too loose, then you fall into dullness. Like you're slept and you don't even know when did you start sleeping. And that's what we have to find here also, in surrender, not too tight into doership and not too loose that, oh, भगवान करेंगे सब और हमने तो कुछ करना ही नहीं है. So, a balance of personal effort and opening up to the divine. So I stumbled upon a few lines of Swami Vivekananda. And there's this small little book I found from someone. It's called Inspired Talks. And just a few lines I read, and I thought maybe now we were discussing, so it would maybe resonate. So he shares that our best work is done, our greatest influence is exerted when we are without the thought of self, the limited little me. All great geniuses know this. Let us open ourselves to the one divine actor and let him act. Let us do nothing ourselves. And then he says, "O Arjuna, I have no duty in the whole world." Now look at this. I mean, Bhagwan has no duty, but we are, burdened under responsibilities of all sorts. So he says, "O Arjuna, I have no duty in the whole world," says Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. Be perfectly resigned, perfectly unconcerned. Then alone can you do any true work. So ये बड़ा पैराडॉक्सिकल है that एक तरफ से कह रहे हैं बिल्कुल perfect resignation and दूसरी तरफ से कह रहे हैं then only the perfect work can happen. So ये जो है, I think this, the limited analytical mind cannot fathom how this is possible. And that's where it is said to silence the mind and to go beyond the limited mind, because no matter how hard we try, we will struggle with it. Maybe one day we'll understand. And that's why in prayers and meditations, Mother says about disinterestedness and self-abnegation, self-forgetfulness. Because all the time, if I'm thinking about what about me, what about my respect, what about my name, my fame, my position, what will I get out of this, then half of the energy is drained there. While if we make ourselves silent, then we get the guidance, whatever, and then we just act it out. So that's what he's sharing, that let us open ourselves to the one divine actor who is anyway acting. But we have to open ourselves. We become the wall in between the actor and the manifestation. So let us open ourselves to the one divine actor and let him act. Let us do nothing ourselves. And this would also take up what Mother and Sri Aurobindo talk about, getting rid of our own preferences, likings, and dislikes, because they become the wall. They are me. And if I want to remove me from the picture, then all my biases, yes, I know this is not resonating, but since it has come in front, let us go about it with the groundest and highest possible attitude that I can fathom. So again, we come back to going against reason or going away from reason, which has so far helped. Yeah. Yeah, one more thing I'm remembering. I'll just share. So Alokda was sharing that somebody asked, what is mother's work of transformation? Because all the time we are hearing about mother's work of transformation. And so it was so simply that he put, and of course we have touched upon that many a times, but it was again very consoling and reconfirming to hear from Alokda that what is mother's work and how can we help. So he said that simply put, mother's work is to let go of the ego self, to go away, step back from the desiring self, and move into our true consciousness. And this is what we have been, I think, in one way or the other, we have been touching upon this through many, many readings of Mother and Sri Aurobindo, that we have to step back from the ego self. And if we want to contribute in any which way to what Mother is trying to do for the whole of planet and beyond, then we personally will have to step back from the ego self, from the desiring self, from the demanding self, because that's not us. So that the true divinity within us can act. And then only the further, transformation can happen. So it was very simple, so simple, that we, all that we have to do if we want to collaborate, step away from the ego self. And yet again, I think we get so distracted in many, many things that we read also, that we somehow also lose sight of it, that what really am I here to do. Yeah, so just wanted to add on as a reminder. Yes, Taru, please go ahead.
Yeah. It's just that whenever whatever we perceive by the senses, right? Like the materialistic gains, the ambitions, the achievements, they appear to be so real that it's just, it, that's why, letting go is difficult, because it feels that it's going against everything I've been taught. And the more we read, right, the more we reflect, things are always kind of opposite, right? Like what I believe to be true is limiting me. What is being asked of me is you're limitless. I know that, but somewhere I don't believe it, right? Like it's just theory that yes, yes, must be, but let me do this first. So this thing about seeing, the body I can touch, the body I can see, so it's real. And yet there's so many things which are happening which I don't have any control over, and I take them as real, but it's hard to totally believe into it and have faith that what I don't see, what I don't hear right away, it's very interesting to again and again and again come to this point and question it, that maybe it will move, a little bit. So um, and what you said about right now, that giving up the ego thing, like how they say that how there are three paths, right? The karma yoga, the bhakti marg, and the what is the third one?
Gyan yoga.
Gyan. And how they say that karma and gyan also end up in bhakti, right? And how does one end up in bhakti when the ego is gone, right? In karma, it's all about, it's so much, right? I am doing. In gyan, I am gaining the thing. And in bhakti, that I, right? There's no me, there's just you. And that oneness is there. So everywhere you can see this if you're willing to see, right? If I am actually looking, I can see that it has to be, there's no other way. And somehow, this passage also reminded me of the talk that Dr. Anand Reddy had once given in Gnostic Center, where he spoke about it, how the integral yoga has changed over time, right? How before the children came and the ashram was shut, I felt it was more of tapasya then, right? Like strict guidelines, do's and don'ts, and and then this aspiration, rejection, surrender. And then finally, what he ended up was that now it's the simplest, right? They just love the mother with all the transformation, all the changes. That her light is in each of your cells, and if that's what you have to get in touch with. The whole the transgression one can see in this passage, that from this it became just this. Yes, please inviting more reflections, if any, on this passage. I'll share.
As Ramakrishna, when he was doing tapasya Dakshineshwar in Kolkata. So the gurus from various places or various types, they used to come and they used to teach something. So there was one Totapuri. Totapuri came and he wanted to teach about the formless, how to believe in the formless, not in the form. So as Ramakrishna has pointed out that like cats, baby cat. So because every time he used to tell in his talk, ma, ma, and all this. So when Totapuri says that, okay, get ready and I'll teach you something. So he says that let me ask permission from my mother. So he said, okay, you ask permission and come. So he went, he took bath in the Ganges and he went to ask and from Mother Goddess Kali. And he came back, he says, yes, I have obtained the permission. And all. So what Totapuri thought that he must have gone to his real mother who has given birth. So he did not realize because he has come to teach the formless, but he has gone to the form actually here. So without mother's permission, he has shown in action actually to all the disciples and those who are there with him. So that nothing can be done. Means surrender is totally 100%, or maybe more than 100%. So without the mother's permission, he cannot do it. So he took permission and he went. And within a very short time, he has picked up what he wanted to teach. And he was astonished, surprised that how could he do that? But he was never in support of, Totapuri was never in support of Sagun Brahma. Sagun Brahma means that God also can be seen and talk and this and that and all this form. So then, of course, it was Goddess only wanted to tell him that yes, it is possible that it can be formed, it can be formless. That in talks Ramakrishna has said many times to the disciples, but he did not believe that. He says, how can it be? So there is some argument and all, and then the heat of the argument, he wanted to commit suicide in Ganges. So then he went into the water, and the moment he goes there, it is only knee deep water. That water, wherever he is going deep inside, and it is becoming the knee deep. So it is to be drowned in the water, but he could not drown himself in the water. So then he realized, and then finally he obeyed that goddess Kali. That was one side of it. And secondly, all the disciples, majority of them were believing in Brahmo Samaj, means they are the formless. Like Swami Vivekananda was also from Brahmo Samaj, where they were practicing the formless God. But he knew that he is to be converted and all this. He has to believe in the form. So like that mother story is a mother and all this. So when his father died, Vivekananda's father died, and there was no body to support that family. He was the eldest son, and there was no food at home, even that sort of thing. So he was moving for a job here and there in Calcutta and all, and on the streets, and he was not eating most of the days. And when he used to come home, not finding a job, at the end of the day, the mother used to say that you eat something. He says, no, I have eaten somewhere. But actually, he knew that there is nothing to eat at home. So something like that. So there, when he was in such a great problem, and all, then he one day he came to Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. He says that I want some sort of this thing at my home, so that my mother get food. So he says that you go and ask whatever you want. I cannot ask for anybody. You go to mother and Goddess Kali and ask. So this is related to the mother, and all this. So that's what I'm saying, that 100% devotion. So then Vivekananda took birth in Ganges, and he went and he prayed. But he could not ask that give me money or something either, such that I can run my family or something, mother and brothers. So first time, and then he came back. So he's waiting there. Ramakrishna Paramahamsa in his hut, small room, and then he came back. And have you asked? He says no. Then go again. You have to ask because this is a serious problem. How can you go without food? So again he went second time, and he could not ask. He prayed and all, and he asked for something else, but no. Then he says no. You go third time. Again he went for the third time. The third time he asked for Gyan, Bhakti, Vivek, and all this, but he has not asked for it. Then when he came back on the third time, he says, have you asked? He says, no, I've forgotten. Well, okay, there will be no problem at your home, and it means, some food will be there every day. So you need not to worry on that. So that faith came, that there's total surrender, that mother can give everything. So that when that faith came, so he changed over from the formless to form, actually. Their mother is there everywhere, but you have to think that yes, at times it can be the one which is formless, Sagun, and he can be Nirgun also, whether he or she, God. So that sort of thing, that mother is this total surrender. But the problem comes for us is that how do I know that I have surrendered myself? Because unless we have the full surrender, and this is the way for us, those who are the family person, and so there is no scale to find out how to prove that yes, I have surrendered.
No, I think there is a scale, and these are subtle senses we can sense. It's not that it's like just completely mumbo jumbo, and I would not know. And of course, it's like it's never that we just reach a wall that, oh, this is like full surrender. Because even when we talk about surrender, it's always an increasing perfection that we can have, further detailed, each and every aspect, each and every cell of the being. So, but what Alokda has shared, and I think what all of us can feel also in our own journeys, that with an increasing sense of surrender, there is a calm serenity that is present in the being. Like usually we are used to being restless, agitated, and annoyed at every little thing that is happening in our lives. Anxiety, panic about things to happen, about future events. But with increasing surrender, there is a certitude that grows, and that because of that certitude, there is a solid unshakability that comes within, which I think there is no one scale for, like, okay, 10 people stand on one scale, not like that. But I think if we ask our own self, then we just have that certitude. It's not that I am gauging myself that, oh, now earlier I was 8 and now I am 9. I think one doesn't need then, because then one is growing in serenity and that certitude and unshakability within, and you see that for your own self. It's not something that you discuss with others, because the moment you discuss it, you again fall. I've seen, many a times, the moment we discuss and talk about, oh, I have surrendered this much and I've been surrendering for 20 years, we again get a chance where we fall, we slip. So better not to talk about these things. But I think there is an internal gauging that we can do. There is this small baul gan, you would know, Badalji. So there was this Parvati Baul. She's a very contemporary modern singer and baul, not really singer, a mystic, one can say. And from her I had heard this song where she said that kichu din mone mone ghorer kone Shamar Preeti Rock Gopone. So, not exactly Bengali, but she said that for at least for some days, and that some days would be a long, long time. We have to know, because the moment we begin to talk about these things, that, oh, look, I have come this way in my surrender, it's not a good thing to talk about these things. So that's why she's sharing that your connection with the divine, your intimacy and love for the divine, you keep it secret for some time. And if you're crying for the divine, then further comes the other stanzas. If you're crying for the divine, if tears come, it's a beautiful song, those of us, very touching. um, and it's available on YouTube also. So she says that if you are crying one day for Krishna, and somebody asks you, why are you crying? So don't tell them, just tell them that, oh, it's because of the Angithi's fire that I am crying, something like that. So it's quite, yeah, it's touching, the song. I, I think more telling about how these things are very intimate and personal, and especially these gauging that how far we have come. This is something we should not be discussing. This is just an internal discussion or talk that can be there. But the moment I say, oh, I have come this far, the next moment we can be sure of slipping back 10, 20 steps. And we would not want to do that. Yeah. And again, many good songs by Parvati Baul. Another one which I'm remembering, Jonomo Morono, Hobe Nibarono, Jodi Kar Mon, Morono Shadhana. Yeah. So she says that if you remember death and if you contemplate on death and really go deeper, then you will get away from this chakkar of birth and death and birth and death. Jonomo Morono, Hobe Nibarono. Yeah, so that's also very beautiful, beautifully sung also, and wonderful lyrics, very deep and very touching. Yeah.
Thank you. Uh, Even the Ramakrishna Paramahansa also said that if you are doing meditation or yoga, it should be, there are three places. It should be in mind. Mone, Bone, Kone. Bone means jungle, in the deep jungle where nobody can go and see what are you doing. And Kone means in one corner of the house, your home, and there you can find. It should not be for any advertisement or just to this thing. Yes, I am doing. I am on this path, and all this. It should never be felt. So, as you said, that we will go down, not be coming up, and all. So it is not to be shared.
Yeah, and I think the thing with sharing is that since every beautiful thing, there is one thing present in us which can be spoiled. Every beautiful thing can be spoiled by this poison called ego. So anything beautiful, good experience, very intimate, true experience, the moment you talk about it or again ruminate over it, in that sense, ego comes and reclaims it that, oh, I did it, I was responsible for it. And it again, it's like a drop of poison, I believe, it just poisons the purity of everything. So ego would be like showing off, that's, look, I am the one who has been doing this for 20 years, not less. Or maybe, oh, I started too young, all kind of things. So it's better not to talk about these things. Yeah, because that keeps the ego in check.
Yes. Thank you. In addition to the ego, in that book, The Hidden Forces, they also talk about, the forces that when you are kind of talking or boasting, how they listen, and then it gets harder and you go back and stuff. Like, again, I've experienced that several times. Yeah, it's I mean, the best thing is that you don't know, but at least what you can understand, you can, try to follow, because there's so many things at play, and you just, yeah, it's what to say. And going back to the passage, I think, yeah, the baby monkey, the baby cat example, actually, I think we all do know that the baby monkey holds on to his mother, the baby cat is held by the mother. So she has no fear nor responsibility. It has nothing to do but let the mother hold it and cry, Mom. Yeah. So again, very reflective of that all we have to do is just cling to the mother. And, um, so, should we move ahead?
Yeah, we'll read further.
Yeah, so the next passage is surrender and
Surrender
yoga.
and the yoga. Surrender is the decision taken to hand over the responsibility of your life to the divine. Without this decision, nothing is at all possible. If you do not surrender, the yoga is entirely out of the question. Everything else comes naturally after it. For the whole process starts with surrender. You can surrender either through knowledge or through devotion. You may have a strong intuition that the divine alone is the truth and a luminous conviction that without the divine you cannot manage. Or you may have a spontaneous feeling that this line is the only way of being happy, a strong psychic desire to belong exclusively to the divine. I do not belong to myself, you say, and give up the responsibility of your being to the truth. Then comes self offering. Here I am, a creature of various qualities, good and bad, dark and enlightened. I offer myself as I am to you. Take me up with all my ups and downs, conflicting impulses and tendencies. Do whatever you like with me.
It is again, this whole process starts with surrender. This is very interesting that how we are always trying to say that we don't know what it is, and yet it starts with surrender. So surrender is the decision. Decision also feels there's so much action though, right? In it, the word decision. Taken to hand over the responsibility of your life to the divine. Without this decision, nothing is at all possible if you do not surrender. The yoga is entirely out of question. Everything else comes naturally after it. But the whole process starts with surrender.
I think you बात हो गई ना जैसे मतलब it's like with Mother and Aurobindo we get to know of this word called will, that there is a central will in us. And right now, not knowingly, that will is giving power to identification with the ego self. So that's the default, that how I, when I become conscious of my own movements, then I see that, oh, I am the one feeding my ego movements, oh, I am the one feeding my jealousy, I am the one. Otherwise, they don't have any power. I am the one believing in my anger. I am the one believing in, oh, this person is like this person is like that. I am the one saying, oh, yes, right, I have to be in a bad mood right now. So I think the more we become conscious, we realize that actually the will is involved. But it's like a default set pattern that, oh, by default, the will is involved in identification with the prakriti, like the surface movements. But then and initially I'm feeling like a victim, that, oh, what can I do here, the condition is like this, what can I do? See, I am the poor victim of all this. But then when I become conscious that, oh, if I don't feed this thought, then it doesn't exist for me. I can turn, maybe think of something good, maybe the mother, Sri Aurobindo. Who is compelling me to think of that storyline? Who is compelling me to ruminate about, all that I'm ruminating about? So I think then we realize that this will that has been engaged in the surface consciousness, with this will only, when I step back, it's the same will that I'm using to step back, that now I am saying no, no more identification with all these surface movements which are not benefiting me. And this is the very will with which I think what we were reading, that the decision gets taken, that now given to myself, the life will remain a misery if I again and again keep identifying with the ego self. So let me make use of this will, which is all the time there with me, now to hand over the responsibility that, okay, you are the boss now. I will not even listen to my own self, which will try and give me suggestions. I will totally listen. And this example we see very much with mother and also Sri Aurobindo's life. So with Sri Aurobindo, we see that how he was taking decisions which were appearing so weird, like he's getting an inner guidance, and he's sharing that, oh, you have to go to Chandarnagar, and he's not asking himself. He's sharing, oh, nothing doing. Okay, I have to go to Chandarnagar. And same with the mother. Mother says, when she, for the first time, I think she comes to Pondicherry, and now she has to go back. And she says that if the Lord would have said that stay, I would have stayed. But then, although she wanted to stay, but she did not give any importance to that want. She said, okay, command has come, go. Then it means not my right time, to further stay. So this is how we self-abnegate, that knowing that some little wish or demand may be there, but how do I know what is good for me? So you keep that aside, and with that will only, which earlier I was using to fuel the ego self, now I step back from the ego self and not even listen to my own self. And in the beginning it is very painful, because most of the times we are identified with our little self and little demands and my moods and my expectation, what would happen of my life that I dreamed of. So in the beginning it does cause some pain, but it's a good pain. Yeah. And if the will has been really decisive, then it's not that difficult to go through that pain, because there is also a joy of fulfilling the higher will. So that negates the pain that we may go through. There is a poem by Sri Aurobindo, The Dream Boat. If time permits, it's a short poem. We can take that today, towards the end.
We can continue with this because we have already finished one passage. We can do the dream board today. That would be interesting. Should I pull it up? You'll pull it up.
Yeah, it's there with me. I'll share. Or maybe you can type Google Dream Boat by Sri Aurobindo. You'll get it. Yeah, so this poem talks of that how the divine keeps on knocking at our door, and we, out of our ignorance, we keep on procrastinating कि भैया बाद में आना, जैसे we in the earlier times when we used to have ground floor houses, and many beggars would come. So many a times you say, maybe you have given to a few and now you don't want to give, so you would say भैया बाद में आना. So that's what we do when the divine is knocking at the door. So this poem touches upon that aspect. Yeah, if anyone would like to read, then we can reflect over it. I think the first line is dream fire. It's not dream fur, if I'm not wrong. Yeah. Or maybe fur, quite possible. Because then he rhymes it with murmur, so it must be fur. Yeah. Okay, anyone who wants to read?
Yeah, Monica, I'll read.
Yes, please.
Yeah. The dream boat. Who was it that came to me in a boat made of dream fur, with his flame brow and his sun gold body? Melted was the silence into a sweet secret murmur. Do you come now? Is the heart's fire ready? Hidden in the recesses of the heart, something shuddered. It recalled at that the life's joy cherished, imaged the felicity it must leave lost forever, and the boat passed, and the gold god vanished. Now, within the hollowness of the world's breast inhabits, for the love died and the old joy ended. Void of felicity that has fled, gone forever, and the gold god and the dream boat come not.
So look at these lines that, when you got the knock or call from the divine of getting on a dream boat, then something in us shuddered, hidden in the recesses of the heart, something shuddered. It recalled all that the life's joy cherished. So हमें क्या क्या छोड़ना पड़ेगा? Whenever we talk of surrender, since we were talking of surrender, we think of, oh, will I have to leave all this that I am now engaged in? All my loved, cherished relationships, the things I love, the places I want to go. So it recalled, one recalls that would I have to leave all this? It recalled all that the life's joy cherished, the familiar. We are so used to our familiar things in life that no matter whether they are benefiting us or not, we still want to hold on to them. Why? Because they are so familiar, they're comforting, that at least I know this. So it recalled all that the life's joy cherished, imaged the felicity it must leave lost forever. So now I am thinking, oh my God, will I have to let go of all this? All that our familiar comfort zones and the little joys and happinesses that we find in our little celebrations and this and that. So one is wondering that would I have to leave all this if I enter that dream boat? And in the time that I am thinking of all this, and the boat passed and the gold god vanished. And this happens every moment. This happens every moment. Shall I enter the familiar zones of thinking and feeling? Or shall I enter some felicity that has been calling me, every moment? Then, now what happens when I lose that? What happens when with my will, I hold on to the familiar and let go of what was new, unknown to come in each moment? Now within the hollowness of the world's breast inhabits. So now again, it's not that I'm satisfied here. Still I'm lacking something. I feel even more hollow. For the love died and the old joy ended. So the joy that I was holding on to earlier, thinking that, oh my God, chinna jai, that also stopped giving me joy. How sad, the picture it creates. The love died, all our initial honeymoon periods, the love died and the old joy ended. Now what do I live with? Void of a felicity that has fled, gone forever. Now I don't know how to call it back. But what do I do with this void that is creeping up in me, all the time, living in me? So what do I do? Because I let it away. Bhaiya baad mein aana. Bhaiya kahan gaya? Wapis kab aayega? No idea. So a void of a felicity, I'm now missing. This is our human condition. We are missing that bliss, that ananda that we have. In every moment, we kind of knock it off. We enter into our familiar thinking patterns. We enter into our familiar feeling, thought zones, storylines, the demands, wishes unfulfilled. That is all familiar zones, and what do I let go of? A felicity. And this is what he read in mother's prayers and meditations, that all that surface vain agitation, but this is the way. What is the way? To enter deep into ourselves and have that felicity, serenity, that we can have with mother's and divine's name. So void of a felicity that has fled, gone forever. And this is, we have to see that this is happening each moment. Each moment, the moment I enter into familiar thought patterns, I am kicking away the felicity that is knocking at my door. And the gold god and the dream boat come not. So, in that moment where I am choosing to identify with my thought patterns, familiar wishes and demands and unfulfilled things, I am actually, like a beggar. The God says, okay, बाद में आएंगे, कब बाद में आएंगे फिर ये मत पूछो. Yeah. So it's again, I just shared a little window here, but I'm sure there is much more to this poem. So I found it very beautiful. Yeah. And now I am recalling that what was that in the first paragraph? Who was it that came to me in a boat made of dream fur? Something, we all want to live an adventurous life, like a life without boundaries and without thresholds, like truly living fully alive. And when we are given moments to do that, we check them out. So dream fur, it's like dreamy, it's like in dreams anything can happen. Dream world does not obey the laws of the material world, we all know that. And also fur, because fur is comforting, so that unknown adventure is very, like, it calls you, but then there are other things which are pulling you down also. Yeah. Yeah, anyway, I just these thoughts I have, and please, you're welcome to share more reflections.
I think one thing that I don't know, a visual was coming to me in addition to this, how when I was a child or when I interact with children, how for them everything is possible, right? This magic, and they can be anybody they want to be, right? Like there's no limitation. There is no, okay, but for this, I want this degree or that much money, or no, they are not bounded yet by the laws, again, like you were saying. So it's alive, and yet how with time we just keep becoming smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, right? Like my thing, which I say that okay, my life is shaping up now. I know exactly, and and then it's like there's some deadness inside, right? There's nothing is growing, nothing is flourishing. It's just that, okay, just running, 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 because it's a conditioned running anyways. There's no joy, there's no nothing. And I lose the connection. Like even the connection, how we children again have a lot of connection with that energy, right? Like as a child, I remember that a lot of things which one don't know. I don't know when I lost, that particular thing or that particular certitude, but it just keeps dropping off. Right. Yeah.
This is what we, in other words, call nowadays. It's called as new phrase for this is midlife crisis. Where after you have ran, whatever was said that you should run for, then you really are hollow within, and you said, what have I done? I mean, I've been running, so I would have been fulfilled by now, but where is that fulfillment? So that's the hollowness, what you were sharing, that I don't know when that came off, as if that, that connection, when we got disconnected on the way, we don't know. But at least I think it's a good observation in itself, that to be able to sense, because many a times we don't even admit that there is a hollowness in life. So to be able to admit that hollowness is there, maybe something can be reclaimed again. Yeah.
Is inviting any comments, any reflections on the poem, if any. So, should we end with that poem, and maybe we can, because that's a lot to,
Mm-hmm.
it
Yeah.
feels like a good place. Yeah, so we'll continue with this passage, surrender and the yoga, next week. And thank you for joining in. And before we end, just taking maybe another minute or two, just again collecting ourselves, thanking Grace for this session, and sharing the merit, if any, with everybody. May all beings be well and happy, truly well and truly happy.